Hello, my name is Deanie, and welcome to my channel. For returning viewers, no, I am not done with Five Nights at Freddy's. My next video will be coming out real soon, and it's going to be all about Sister Location. I just like to talk about things I like a lot, and one of those things happens to be Chainsaw Man. Well, that's only partially true. I watched season 1 of the anime a little bit after it came out, and I really liked it. I thought it was unique. I thought the art style was gorgeous, and the main character of Denji really pulled me in. He was just so different from anything I had seen before. There was a spark in this story that was rebellious, hard to grasp. After that, I read the manga from the beginning and kept up with the story weekly until it ended with chapter 232 in March of 2026. And, to put it lightly, I didn't love the ending. It felt like everything was building up and up, that resolutions were just around the corner, that characters would finally complete some kind of arc, and then the story was over. Many things were left unresolved, and I closed the chapter feeling an overwhelming disappointment. After giving it some time, it seemed like the online reception of this ending was either my reaction, or people saying that if you didn't like it, you just don't get it. So this is me trying to give Chainsaw Man the benefit of the doubt. Maybe there's something I missed, and the weekly schedule of release made the story's pacing horrible. Maybe the ending is more profound than I thought. So begins my descent back into one of my favorite stories of recent memory. A manga with twists and turns and characters I will love until I die, and an ending I don't think I've fully grasped. In this video, I will be going over the introduction arc, chapters 1 through 4, and doing my best to analyze them, pick up on thematic devices, figure out the quirks in the writing, and maybe get a new perspective on the story as a whole. If you want to see more story analysis videos like this in between FNAF uploads, consider liking and subscribing. And without further ado, let's dive in. I'm going to try and keep the summarization portions of this video very small in comparison to my analysis, but we do have to go over what actually happens in each chapter. So, full spoiler warnings for chapters 1 through 4 in this video, and I'll give another warning if I talk about something past that. In chapter 1, we are introduced to Denji, a young boy forced to sell his organs and cut down trees to settle a monstrous debt. With the help of his pet, the Chainsaw Devil, they also work as devil hunters for a modest fee. This debt is to the Yakuza, a debt incurred from his dead father who killed himself. Living in squalor, Denji dreams of what he thinks is a normal life. We also find out that Denji is likely dying from a genetic heart disease from his mother. After being lured into an empty old warehouse, Denji is stabbed through the heart. The Yakuza boss and other Yakuza members made a contract with the Zombie Devil for more power, but it ultimately rendered them mindless, since the Zombie Devil just controls them to its own whims, in this case, killing all devil hunters. Denji is chopped to pieces and dies. Pochita, also on the brink of death, merges into Denji's heart, with the contract of Denji showing Pochita his dreams. Denji wakes up, transforms into the titular Chainsaw Man, and kills the Zombie Devil and the Yakuza zombies. After a long battle, public safety officers show up, including one called Makima, who offers to take him in as a devil hunter or kill him, an offer Denji accepts after she lists out some of the foods that he would be treated to. And that's chapter 1. It was a very dense chapter, a strong, bombastic opening to this manga, an opening that, in fact, carries almost all of the essential themes of the story. Denji and Pochita love each other, there's no doubt about that, but there is still a subtle sense of inequality between them. Their relationship started as a give and take, a devil contract, and even though it seems to have worked out for both of them, the two are still fundamentally using each other to survive. Pochita, a tool for killing devils and cutting down trees, and Denji, a source for food and shelter. It also introduces the fact that Denji feels guilty towards his father's death, as he thinks of him when he sees Pochita hurt and scrambles to save him, something he couldn't do for his father. Given their circumstances, it makes sense that Denji is desperate for money. So when this random Yakuza guy tells him to eat a cigarette for some money, he obliges. This is also where our first hint of the dog motif shows up. Both Yakuza members call Denji a dog, and like a trained dog, Denji obeys. It's an interesting metaphor to start, and continues into the rest of the story, because Denji literally has a dog, Pochita. There is an obvious mirror here between the relationship of the Yakuza and Denji and Pochita. Another hint that even though Pochita seems to be content and loving towards Denji, there is an odd dynamic between the two. We also know that basically his whole life, Denji has been a dog, obeying his masters out of fear of punishment. Even so, Denji isn't a good dog. He tricks his masters into giving the cash but not actually swallowing the cigarette. Denji is a clever guy. Another major theme is the concept of a normal life. Or rather, dreams of a normal life. Denji longs for it. It's his one dream that won't leave him alone. The thought of having a normal breakfast and going on dates with girls is something that's ever present for him. But even if he were to pay off all of his debt, even if he were able to be normal, it wouldn't last long, as his heart condition would likely kill him soon no matter what. Even so, he finds comfort in the dream itself, and feels like his current life as a Yakuza devil hunter is not letting him do so. In the empty warehouse, the Yakuza boss tells Denji that he's valuable because he's a dog, and Denji agrees, before being killed by that same boss, now possessed by the zombie devil. We see that Denji is someone who will sacrifice a lot. We see him sell his organs for money, spend his entire life working to pay off a debt that's not even his, and splitting what meager food he does have with Pochita. But even after sacrificing all this, he plans to sacrifice even more. He tells Pochita to take his body upon death and live out the dreams that Denji never could. But, like Denji, Pochita is a bad dog. Instead of doing what Denji says, Pochita makes a new contract with Denji, replacing his old beaten-up heart and bringing him back to life, in exchange for Denji showing him his dreams. It's the ultimate sacrifice, this time from Pochita, and shows Pochita to care about Denji, or rather, that Denji does achieve his dreams of a normal life. Even so, if we examine this a little bit, there are some cracks that show. Pochita made this a contract, meaning Denji is beholden to this promise, or he will go back to being a chopped-up body in a dumpster. Once again, Denji is in the grasp of someone else deciding for him what to do. He's a dog, yet again. For a moment, when Denji wakes up, it seems like he's guilty for having the dreams of a normal life. But after a moment of rationalizing, he figures that dreaming isn't bad. But now that he has a contract with Pochita, his dreams have to come true. He must do everything in his power to honor the contract. His dreams became a job, a trick for the dog to perform. And so anyone in his way must die. When public safety arrives, Makima grabs Denji as he falls. It's a hug. The exact dream we heard from Denji earlier in the chapter. A dream that, now fulfilled, is one less debt he owes to Pochita. But this woman is not so wonderful. She knows Denji has a devil inside of him, and offers him two choices: die, or join and be a devil hunter. This is the exact same position he was in under the Yakuza. He simply has a new master. His situation is not any better. To drive that home even farther, Makima even calls Denji her pet. But with the offer of food, Denji accepts, with this ominous line: "That's a dream come true." Denji is fully unaware of the position he's in, the same hellish servitude he's been in all his life, just with a prettier outside. Denji, at the end of chapter 1, is still a dog, ordered around by his masters Makima out of fear and Pochita out of love and obligation, his dreams becoming another debt to pay. Chapter 1 of Chainsawman ends with false hope for Denji, the concept of his dreams coming true when, in actuality, his true dreams of freedom are farther than they ever have been. The themes of dreaming for a normal life, dogs, and sacrifice were established in this chapter, and are things that will be discussed for much longer in the story. Chapter 2 begins with Denji being driven out of the warehouse by public safety. Makima gives him her jacket and offers to pay for food, which makes Denji instantly fall in love with her. No one has ever treated him this well in his life. When ordering udon, a man comes up screaming that his daughter was taken by a devil. Makima orders Denji, like a dog, to take care of it. Denji finds a little girl who pleads to let this devil live. Thinking of Pochita and the new state of servitude he's in, Denji asks to run away together. The girl accepts, but it was a ruse. The muscle devil takes control of the girl and tries to kill Denji, but Denji disposes of the devil quickly. Back at the udon place, Makima treats Denji like a dog, and tells him that Pochita is alive in his heart. Not metaphorically, literally. She also says that Denji is her type of guy. This chapter is a further dive into the relationship between Denji and Makima, dog and master, as well as a look inside Denji's mind right now. Denji's emotions are not the most stable, almost instantaneously reversing in situations of infatuation and hatred. In the car, Denji's lack of self-esteem and experience in having interpersonal relationships instantly views Makima as the woman of his dreams, the avenue towards that ever too far normal life. But Makima isn't a good person. When her udon is ready, she sends Denji to go deal with the devil so it doesn't get soggy. When Denji protests, she reminds him of who he is: a dog. A docile, serving dog. And dogs that don't do what they're told get punished. Going out into the woods, Denji reflects on how he was fooled by Makima's charm, angry at being treated like a dog. At some point, this is likely the attitude that he felt towards the Yakuza, anger. But after a while, the anger mellowed, replaced by something akin to gratitude. They are the ones giving them food and shelter after all. An imperceptible step towards the dream of a normal life. When Denji talks to the little girl, he's already emotional about Makima treating him horribly and Pochita's death. So, when she pleads for the Muscle Devil's life, he obliges, thinking of Pochita, and even offers to run away together. This is a striking difference from what we saw at the end of the last chapter, calling Makima a dream come true, and even the beginning of this chapter when he fell in love with her. In this moment, Denji is ruled by fear. Fear of what could happen if he returns to his life as a dog. He had one glimpse of what he thought was freedom before tumbling back into the same hell he was in with the Yakuza. But his plans are put on hold as he saves the little girl from the Muscle Devil. Returning, anemic from being Chainsaw Man, Denji stumbles into Makima's arms, acting like a good dog. This is another dramatic shift. From what I can tell, this behavior does not only stem from his lack of blood. The Muscle Devil's deceit flipped a switch in Denji somehow. Moments ago, he was willing to run away. Now he runs towards his captor. I think it also has to do with Denji literally starving away and requiring help. I think this flip-flop of ideals is also meant to show Denji being quite immature. We're not sure how young he is, but he is definitely younger than 18. With his life of nothing but servitude, Denji doesn't really know where his loyalties truly lie, what he actually believes in, and that confusion leads him right back to Makima. Makima lets Denji know that Pochita is alive in him, literally, and it makes him feel a lot better, a lot less guilt-ridden. I think this is the difference between Pochita and Makima. Pochita has control over Denji by love, an obligation to a loved one who's passed on to live a life they could be proud of. And even so, Pochita isn't really dead, so Denji's debt to him is somewhat diminished at this moment. But Makima has control of Denji through force and fear. If he doesn't do what she says, he will be killed. Not only that, but Makima is an expert manipulator, telling Denji exactly what he needs to hear to fall back into her arms. It begs the question then, was she telling the truth when she said that Pochita was alive? Or was that a ruse to make Denji feel better and to focus on her debt rather than Pochita's? Denji tricks Makima into feeding him noodles, something I'm sure he sees as a date, one of the things he dreamed of in Chapter 1. Makima is clearly not fooled, but she is satisfied at this turn of events. She has him completely wrapped around her finger, and as the final piece of manipulation, she gives the tantalizing, torturous hint that she may like Denji back, keeping Denji locked in her orbit. Denji is still fawning over Makima when they arrive at the Devil Hunter's HQ, the building itself warping the page, like it's completely unnatural. Still thinking about what could happen with Makima, Denji is introduced to Aki Hayakawa, a devil hunter that he's meant to work with. He is a harsh, cold man. Aki beats Denji up in an alley for the reasons of protecting him. Everyone who joins the Devil Hunters ends up dead unless they have real conviction, so this is his way of saving Denji's life. Denji fights back by hitting him in the balls a bunch of times, claiming that his life now is a dream come true. After the scuffle, Makima assigns Denji to Aki's Devil Hunter squad, reiterating that Denji will be killed if he messes up. Aki and Denji are now living together and discuss Makima's character on the walk home, and Denji is still head over heels for her even after the threat of death. This chapter introduces another main character into the story, Aki Hayakawa. The chapter begins with this warped, horrible building, literally leading Denji away from the world, as if it's a world of its own. While Makima is introducing the job, all Denji can think about is sex. This is where Denji's desire for sex gets introduced, and it's a major player in how Denji acts moving forward. A major theme in this story is Denji's relationship to sex, how stunted it is because of his childhood, and how with the dream of a normal life driving him, sex becomes the ultimate ideal. Aki is introduced as cold and unfeeling, just doing his job. Even so, he throws in the comments that Denji isn't in Makima's league. After being upset, Makima continues her manipulation of Denji, promising time with her if he does a good job. In the alley, Aki is shown to somewhat care about Denji. He correctly identifies that Denji joined public safety to be with Makima, but Aki continues the disrespect by putting his cigarette out on him with his spit. Aki feels like someone who feels very proud of his job, and knows the ins and outs deeply, and feels like it's an exclusive club. He feels like he's proven his worth as above the new hires, as someone who can be considered an expert. Aki, in short, is annoying. Even so, he's trying to save Denji at least, and his kindness is rewarded with several consecutive nutshots. Denji proclaims that he has been treated the best he's ever been treated in his entire life here. Keep in mind, this is after Makima has threatened his life several times and tells him multiple times that she won't hesitate to kill him. Even so, Denji is living his dream of eating normal food, being treated with the most basic kindness, and being around a hot girl who likes him. He's even willing to make the ultimate sacrifice to keep living like this, his life, before changing his mind. Him dying would mean Pochita dying. This is his contract. He has to live to show Pochita his dreams, and keep his dreams going to honor his sacrifice. This is his debt. He can't just go and die. His life is an obligation to another. Aki slips up a little during the fight, revealing that he likely has feelings for Makima as well, or at least he's fiercely protective of her. This is a strange dynamic, because Makima gave a lot of attention to Denji and none to Aki in the office. Back inside, Denji says one of my favorite lines in this entire series. A testicle devil attacked his balls. Makima ignores the two having zero chemistry and places them in the same squad, and even the same living quarters. Makima then reveals to Aki that if Denji ever messes up, he will be put down like a dog, or devil. Makima even evokes the language of an eternal bond, marriage, with the phrase, death do us part, clearly an ominous line meant to signify Makima's power over Denji, but also to keep Denji thinking about the pair of them being together as lovers, an expert manipulation. Denji is struggling with himself over his feelings with Makima. On one hand, she's showing him affection and treating him well, something no one has ever done for him. On the other hand, she's keeping him as a devil hunter against his will, even if Denji doesn't realize that, and treating him like a servant dog. Because it's marginally better than the Yakuza, Denji doesn't seem to understand the position he's in, and defaults back to swooning over Makima, concluding that she must be a good person since she's nice and saved Aki's life. Denji is still infatuated. Chapter 3 is the natural progression of the story, and introduces Aki as one of Denji's confidants in the story. Similar to the past two chapters, we see Denji going back and forth between his feelings about Makima, subtly finding the patterns of her and Yakuza being similar, but only subconsciously, his desire for sex, food, and companionship overwhelming the part of his brain that's warning him of the danger Makima poses to his well-being. After another flip-flop, Denji again lands on Makima being good, and continues to be in love. Even though Aki seems to be more mature, more in tune with the world, he is in the same trap as Denji. Just like Denji, Aki likes Makima, is under the impression that she is a good person, after the multitude of things that has shown her not to be, even threatening death to Denji right in front of him. But Aki's cognitive dissonance allows him to see past it, see her as someone willing to make hard decisions, an intelligent leader, a good person. He may hide it better, but it's clear that even though he made fun of Denji, Aki's reason to be a devil hunter is just as shallow. He too loves Makima, or at least respects her more than anyone else. These two are both dogs in their own right. Chapter 4 begins with a full page of Denji, leashed and controlled by multiple hands. Subtle symbolism, subtle symbolism. We see Denji lavishing in his new home with Aki, and Aki becomes increasingly frustrated with him. The two get called out to deal with a fiend, which is a devil that has taken over a human corpse, and Denji kills it with an axe, refusing to obey Aki's orders. The two clash, and after a bit of thinking, Denji comes up with his ultimate goal, the thing that will push him further and further. He's gonna touch some boobs. Back at HQ, Makima assigns Denji a buddy in his devil hunting activities, Power, the blood devil fiend. After a brief hesitation about working with a fiend, Denji gets over it after looking at her chest. Chapter 4 is the beginning of Denji's new life, his normal life that he's always dreamed of. The beginning of this chapter shows how he's indulging in his newfound luxury, making the ultimate toast and enjoying the bathroom a bit too much. Now that he's discovered his dream, and in his mind fulfilled it, there's nothing left to do but continue living in it, as Pochita would have wanted, and so feels no guilt at simply being hedonistic with what he has, much to Aki's dismay. An interesting moment that I feel is foundational to Aki and Denji's relationship is the way that Aki reacts when Denji says he never went to school. Aki is surprised, of course, but it also seems like he's reflecting a bit. Maybe looking back at his actions and going, why did I do that to this poor kid? He's re-examining his own biases against Denji. After not using his devil powers, Aki actually grabs his sword, ready to kill Denji for disobeying. Denji's excuse for not using the powers is interesting, which is giving the guy a painless death, since he could have easily become a fiend himself. I love how during this argument, you can see Aki approaching with the paneling, and Denji becoming less confident in his excuse as Aki gets closer. Aki smashes Denji's head into the window and tells him not to sympathize with devils, and reveals that his family was killed by a devil, and tells Denji to take things seriously. But it's here that we see a bit more into Denji's morals. In his mind, he follows the people who can lead him to his dream, to a normal life. So far, that has been the Yakuza, since they provide him with money and shelter. And now, Makima, who does the same, but a bit better. These are the closest things Denji has to a friend. So when he is offered up the hypothetical of a devil friend, which he has had in the past, he doesn't hate the idea. He's willing to be friends with anyone who wants to be friends with him, since he's literally never had the chance to do so. It's sad and poignant to Denji's character, and I think is what causes Aki to back off here. Of course, it's revealed that Denji didn't actually want to give the fiend a painless death. He just wanted to avoid getting blood over the porn magazines he was going to steal. Even so, I think there was some truth to what he said. We've seen Denji have sympathy for devils a lot in the past few chapters, especially after Pochita's death. But this fiend was immediately aggressive, so Denji didn't have a problem disposing of it, similar to the Muscle Devil. Denji comes to the conclusion that he has reached his dreams, at least the ones he had in the cabin before he was killed, and that Aki is giving him a hard time because he hasn't achieved his goals. That's the difference between the two. Aki has a serious goal, while Denji wants to maintain what he has right now, or at least he did. In a burst of inspiration, Denji chooses his next dream beyond his normal life. He wants to touch some boobs. He rationalizes it to be a more attainable goal than sex, but this is still Denji's sex drive talking. Denji's dream from the beginning has been a normal life, as defined by his poverty state, being able to bathe and eat good food, alongside being with a pretty girl, which he views as complete because of Makima. So when a goal is attained, the only human reaction is to start looking for a new one, to reach higher. And the next rung on the ladder for Denji is being sexually active. It's something he once viewed as part of that normal life, but gave up on it since it was never gonna happen. Until now. And it looks like the goal of touching a girl's chest and having sex does not need to be with the same person, since he's still clearly infatuated with Makima and wants to be intimate with her, but is ready to achieve the first of those goals upon seeing Power enter HQ. Chapter 4 is Denji's new starting point. Once again, a serving dog to a ruthless master, but with his original dream fulfilled and a new one to replace it. Denji is seemingly blind to the threats surrounding him as long as he gets to continue his normal life. But how long will that last? How long until the dream takes over, like with the Yakuza, and everything feels useless besides the pursuance of that goal? The introduction arc of Chainsaw Man does exactly what it's supposed to. It introduces us to the world of this story. We understand that devil contracts run this world, and that devil hunters are needed to get rid of these monsters that are threats to human safety. But we also see that the less fantastical parts of this story are all too familiar to reality. There is still poverty and corruption, which we see through the eyes of Denji. In his transition into a public safety devil hunter, we see Denji as a young, immature guy, whose dreams are in flux, and whose sense of self is not really formed. Denji doesn't really know what to think about this new situation, about his feelings towards Makima, about his ambitious goals, because he's never had the chance to pursue anything of the sort. His whole life has been in service to the Yakuza, and before that, guilt over the death of his father. His only companion, Pochita, is now inside of him, out of reach. In this new normal life, Denji must learn to calibrate his goals, deal with his sex drive, and find companionship elsewhere. It's funny. In a chapter where we learn that Denji has no friends and no schooling, he ends up with the goal of touching a girl's chest. I think this is a fundamental part of Denji's character. He doesn't really know what's best for himself at the end of the day, and it doesn't help that his mind is being manipulated completely by Makima, by threats, and by kindness. The introduction arc shows that Denji is not escaping into freedom. His servitude is just changing hands, like a dog being sold to a new owner. That's the end of the introduction arc, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next entry into the series where I talk about the Bat Devil arc. Thank you so much for watching, and happy learning.